Afternoon, 30th of June 2024, back again. Our next speaker is Mrs. Sally Higgins from the Women Against Pit Closures group in Nottingham. And she got a great reception, and rightly so, because obviously, as the men in the strike knew, couldn't have done it without the women. And what a great speech, and more importantly, what a great round of applause she got. So this is Sally Higgins.
Yes. This is the message that Ken Loach has sent to us tonight. I'm very sorry not to be with you this evening, but thank you for allowing me to share a few thoughts. The strike of 1984 was the most important event in our post-war history. We lost the games of 1945, and the new era of ruthless exploitation of workers and their families began. And now we suffer the consequences of that defeat. It was a moment that shone a light on all the key players in the story, and their actions reveal truths that we still have not learned. After the war, we established the welfare state with the National Health Service at its heart. We owned the public services. We owned public utilities, water, gas, electricity, for example, and strategic infrastructure and industries, including the railways, steel, and of course the coal mines. It was far from perfect. Many mistakes were made, but it was a giant step forward. By the end of the 70s, it was being eroded, but that decade also saw the proportion of wealth generated by our economy that went to the working class was the highest it has ever been. Major employers, financiers, and the Tories, the ruling class, decided enough was enough and were determined to end any controls that lessened their profits. Capitalism red in tooth and claw. They made no secret of their long-term intentions to undermine the welfare state and to return what was then in public ownership to private corporations. Thatcher led the political charge. Increasing profits meant increasing exploitation at work. That meant an attack on organised labour. She had a three-pronged plan. 1, withdraw subsidies from failing industries and allow unemployment to rise. 2, provoke strikes she could win. 3, introduce laws to restrict unions' ability to organise. The plan worked brilliantly. Unemployment shot through the roof, over 3 million in no time. Thatcher provoked the steelworkers to strike, knowing their leadership was weak and there was little history of militancy. Then other union leaders did deals to sell jobs. When the rank and file fought back to oppose the closure of their factories, they were disowned by their own union. The miners were left till last, the strongest, most politicised, best organised of all the unions. And then for the strike itself, you know more about this than anyone. You remember the great support, warmth and solidarity from rank and file union and Labour members, and from the general public too. meetings and collections and speeches in every town, however small. You remember the part women played, the food kitchens, the strength of the communities, the moral and personal support that families gave each other. You remember the marches, speeches, rallies, links to unions and miners in other countries, and the sense of optimism in the early months. You knew you fought a just cause. Probably more than anything, you will remember the picket lines and the people you had worked alongside crossing them. Tough, painful days. But you also remember the power of the state used against you, the police brutality, vicious, cruel, ruthless, Maggie Thatcher's boot boys. Who gives them the right to beat me, a working man? I want to know. I heard a young miner ask this after being battered in the back of a police van. And then the media. We know the press are right-wing, but the broadcasters, particularly the BBC, revealed what is usually concealed, their permanent bias against the working class. In the end, they are an arm of the state. They speak not for political parties, but for the deeper interests of the ruling class. Amidst the reality of police brutality, do you remember the main story was the opposite? Picket line violence. You'll remember the UDM and its hidden support by right-wing activists. It was greatly exaggerated by the media then, and it still is today, as in the recent TV documentaries. And you remember, I'm sure, the part played by the leaders of the Labour Party and the major trade unions. Kinnock and Hattersley disowned the strike just as Ramsay MacDonald did in 1926. They spoke weasel words about sympathy and understanding, but contributed nothing. This was correctly understood as a rejection of the strike itself. They chose a victory for the Tories rather than organising the strength of the Labour movement to win the strike. These men were not fools. They will have understood. They chose the probable destruction of the welfare state and the end of common ownership as a Labour project. The union leaders did the same. No organised solidarity action. Why would they support the miners when they had already sold the jobs of their own members? This goes to the heart of Labour politics. Social Democrats, we always called them that, believe big business can be contained so that the working class are protected. Businesses must make profits. No profits, no business. Therefore, no taxes, no work, and the system collapses. Therefore, in the conflict between business demands and workers' needs, Labour leaders must put the interests of business before the interests of workers and their families. That is why Labour leaders always betray. And it is one reason why Jeremy Corbyn was removed as Labour leader. Starmer promised a radical programme to get elected as party leader, then tore up the promises. He then purged the left to remove all dissent. Labour is now a neoliberal party, committed to the same principles as the Tories. as they say, you can't put a cigarette paper between Starmer and Sunak. Finally, I suggest says Ken, these are the lessons of the 84 strike. 1, we need Labour and union leaders who are committed to the independent interests of the working class. We need to organise a movement, a party that understands that we must confront the power of the state. Solidarity, internationalism and unity are our strengths. Like the England team in the Euros, we have the talent, the strength and the urgent need to score. Let's get cracking, comrades. With solidarity and friendship, that is Ken's message. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade. You must admit that was very eloquently put. Ken Loach couldn't put it better himself, I don't think. Yeah. I'd just like to present Hilary with something for speaking on behalf of Ken.